Welcome to our Christmas episode of Men Who Understood the Times. So I've got Andy here. Andy, what is your Christmas sweater you're wearing? You want to show it to the
I
camera?
sure I have an ultimate Christmas sweater here.
The Raiders. Uh,
Remember, it's supposed to be a funny Christmas sweater,
I
and the
see.
Raiders certainly are a comedy act.
Yeah. Josh, what do you have?
I forgot that memo. Uh, I'm uh, I'm wearing. What am I wearing? Oh, Indian Motorcycle Company.
Uh, there you
Uh,
go. Yeah. And I say that what I'm wearing is not an ugly Christmas sweater because it's Star Wars, so it cannot possibly be ugly. And then for this episode, I also replaced the wise men in the nativity scene with my potato head Star Wars characters because I don't think that's sacrilegious
that's
at
an
all.
odd level of dedication, brother. I gotta
Yes.
say. Like,
Hey,
Yes.
anything for you guys and our fans. Uh, so for this Christmas episode, Andy, are you drinking anything special?
Actually, just the highball as usual, but this time I do have the Walmart brand Luxardo Cherry involved.
All right. How about Josh?
I have a Deschutes IPA.
All
It's
right.
fresh squeezed, apparently.
So my youngest daughter, Belle, is staying with us over her Christmas break from Wisconsin through college. So she made an adult watermelon lemonade for me. So it's salty watermelon whiskey with lemonade. So what we're going to be talking about first with this is Christmas movies, and then we can discuss these movies. Andy, what are your top five Christmas movies?
I just want to make sure that any Packers legacy documentaries are ineligible for this list. Just
Y-
just clearing that up front. If not, if those aren't eligible, then I'll give you five, and then I'm going to give you a couple of like two cavalry type movies that are just they're not Christmas, but they might as well be because they're tradition. You got to watch them every year. So first of all, this is in no order, by the
All
way,
right.
no order of hierarchy. Charlie Brown Christmas Special with Linus reading Luke 2. You got to do it every year. Besides, it's not even that big of a commitment. It goes by so fast.
Yeah,
Then you
and
got
and with that one, Belle told Shelly and myself that she's never watched that, and Shelly said, "Michael, we have failed as parents, so
No,
we
you
are definitely
yeah,
haven't. Hold on a second. Like, here's the
yes,
she
thing with
she's
that. Like,
she's pretty much un-American. We know it.
if she watches that as an adult, I think that she will find it to be almost absurdly depressing because it's like savagely depressing to watch as an adult. When I was a kid, I loved it, and the bit from Luke 2 is so refreshing to see on a public access
Mhm.
like PBS. That's awesome. Apart from that, wow, it's
Well, I think
unpopular opinion
Schultz.
probably, but
no,
I thought they were going to air it on ABC originally, and Schultz said, and ABC gave him some gruff, and he said, "It's in there, or I'm not
right,
allowing you to show it." And he held his ground, and they did. They showed the
yep,
whole thing.
right,
Okay, so we got Charlie Brown Christmas, of course. I've got Die Hard 1. You guys knew that was coming. It's
yep,
got to be in there.
it's on my list too.
I've got Elf.
okay,
Elf has got to be top five. It's absolutely hilarious. Will Ferrell. Okay, you guys may or may not like this. This might be disputable, but given I have kids, three kids, 13 and under, and every year, maybe multiple times, we watch Home Alone 1. So
Oh
Home
yeah,
Alone,
oh yeah, yeah.
the original Home Alone has got to be on the list, you
yep.
filthy animals. All right, then this is maybe I'll or an epiphany for some people out there. I don't know if anybody's heard of the 25-minute long animated Christmas movie called The Very First Noel. They've changed the name now, so it's called The Three Wise Men now because I
Hmm.
think a different company bought it. But it's awesome, awesome telling of the Christmas account, and the entire movie is a poem. So there's poetry, verse, or lyric throughout the entire movie, and like I said, 25-minute long movie.
Mhm.
But then it's entirely read. The poetry is read entirely by Andy Griffith.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool. What's it called?
The very first Noel is what we bought it as. You can buy it digitally as well. It's an awesome buy. I think you can buy it on Amazon Prime.
Hmm.
And I think it's been renamed like the Three Wise Men now or something like that. But we like it so much and it's so solid. It's got a great soundtrack also, by the way. We show it every year. We have Christmas Eve services, 2 or 3 worship services. This year we got 3 in Vegas. And then we always have Christmas Day worship at 9:30 with communion, since the word made flesh. And afterwards, we provide a little light continental breakfast and a showing of
Well,
the very first Noel every year.
That's a cool tradition.
there you go.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So the cavalry, they're not exactly Christmas, but you got to watch them annually, and no better time to do it than mid to late December. The Dark Knight trilogy. You've got to commit to it. Okay. And also and also the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Oh my.
That's on my list too. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It's not Christmas, but it's a redemptive message. So it's got to qualify.
All right. Josh, what do you have?
I had a lot of overlap there. I had Die Hard. Okay, so I want to say it's Pastor Josh Howerton, who's a YouTube personality. I might have sent this to you guys. He argued that like there's a there's a Christ archetype in Home Alone, the first one. The scary old guy with the snow shovel. Um, when Kevin is in the drugstore buying, I think it's a toothbrush,
Hmm.
right? And the guy bangs his hand down on the counter, you can see that his hand is bandaged and bleeding right here. Okay. And then at the end of the movie, when they're in the church and they shake hands, there's a band-aid on the back of his hand. And so he's pierced all the way through. And he literally saves Kevin at the end of the movie. And so it's a little thin, but I'll take it. So
And
Home
and
Alone is
his
officially
and his
a
hand is
Christian movie.
healed. His hand is healed on Christmas morning. The bandage is gone when he's hugging his son.
Little things, little
Yep.
things. Yeah, cheers to Die Hard. And I will confess to having several T-shirts sporting the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Not appropriate children, but like my goodness, what a quotable film.
This should have been a
Um,
top 10 list. I'll just say that right now
I
because I
know it
can't
should have
I
been.
can't
It should have
believe I
been.
left National Lampoon's off. That's
Okay,
heresy.
so as a teacher, I always have off, and so I love listening to the radio, and I would be um, working in my wood shop listening to the radio, and they always play the 1934 radio plays of like the Campbell's Soup sponsor, like A Christmas Carol, and we've seen that one several times live, and then of course the various versions that are movies. A Wonderful Life, White Christmas, and the Grinch movies. The kids love those. Either are really good, and then. Um, I recently realized that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from like the 60s, that's stop motion animation.
Hmm.
And there's like 80,000. I mean, it's just insane when you think about, okay, we're going to take a picture and then adjust Rudolph's nose a little bit. And then Yukon Cornelius is my favorite character from that one. So there we go.
All right.
Are those the same ones that are like claymation like?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Uh,
Before
we are
CGI, and they're amazing.
Yep.
they're amazingly produced, I'll grant you that, but there's a creep factor to those that's a little unsettling.
What's the Uncanny Valley? Yeah, that's a
So, I agree. Home Alone. With Belle here, we watched Home Alone the other day, one, and we're 3/4 of the way through Home Alone 2, which is good. Not quite as good as the first Home Alone. Charlie Brown Christmas. We also watched A Muppet Christmas Carol because it is very close to the Charles Dickens, and I think that Gonzo plays an excellent Charles Dickens in that. And
Michael Caine should have gotten an Oscar for that
well, and
because
that's
I
the
mean
yeah, that's the thing I was
that's
going to mention is when you look at it and you review it, that Michael Caine, people commented, how could you do that so well? And he just pretended the Muppets were real people. and he interacted with them. And so he has like a real performance. So he's a straight man with all of these Muppets. And I think that's right up there with the Muppet movie as one of the best of all of those. Yeah, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. And when I was going over my list with Shelley and Belle, they said, well, which one? Because there's like three of them. And I said, well, it has to be the animation one because the other two are
Hmm.
scary. Uh, and then, yeah, like you said, Josh, Rudolph, because two things, Bumbles bounce, and then yeah, the Yukon Cornelius. We were sharing a meme before that Yukon Cornelius carried a fixed blade and a revolver and an impact tool
Hmm.
readily accessible on his hips. Uh, then the girls were saying because they're ladies, they didn't understand Die Hard being a Christmas movie, and they're saying, how can it be Christmas? I said, you've got Silent Night and Hans Gruber. You've got it's all about sacrifice. A
Killing
husband's
of the
willing to sacrifice.
Innocents.
There you go. The killing of it. That's
Hmm.
what I had thought of. Uh, and then Elf, whereas Shelley mentioned that a year ago, yesterday, we were in Chicago, a really cold, windy day because our daughter Miriam and her husband Mark, and then Belle and her boyfriend Dylan, and then Shelley and I, we went down to a bar. This is great marketing that for Christmas, they changed the theme of their bar to Elfed Up, and we're just waiting in line outside for an hour and a half just to be able to eat at the restaurant and so forth. And Mark, being Mark, my son-in-law, he ordered the elf plate, which is what does he have for that meal? Like spaghetti with
Syrup on it.
Is
syrup.
it it's like tricks or something, or some other kind of a breakfast
Yeah,
cereal?
yeah, and then candies and so forth. And if he ate it, then you got free drinks and so forth. And he ate that monstrosity without throwing up.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, wow. Okay.
All right. Any other comments you want to make about the Christmas movies, gentlemen? Otherwise, I found this too. I'm going to share this later on. And I do have a meme for Christmas Day that I'm going to sh share with everyone on Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. But I found this of a picture of a CGI snowman as a reverend, and in the meadow we can build a snowman, then pretend that he is Parson Brown. He'll say, "Are you married?" We'll say, "No, man, but you can do the job when you're in town." And then they comment, "Whoa, slow your roll there. This snowman has zero theological training, no seminary degree. Worst of all, he's not even licensed as an officiant in the state. Sir, you are a pile of frozen water, cosplaying as clergy. Have you even given them marriage counseling? I don't think so. I respect the hustle, but you cannot legally bind anyone in holy matrimony. Please cease and desist immediately." I thought
Sound
that's great.
sounds like a perfect candidate for an ELCA parish.
Very
Andy,
nice.
when we were in college, wasn't there a pastor track prof? The story that I heard was one of your profs in the pastor track. He wanted to get online ordination, and he
Hmm.
asked permission to avoid causing any like heretical issues. It was denied, and so he did the whole thing, but instead of his name, somebody had given him a taxidermied armadillo. And so he had the armadillo ordained, and he took a picture of it and sent it. It was just a degree mill, and you pay $100 and you get ordained, so that you can do weddings or whatever else. And so I can't recall which prof that was though, but I've heard that from multiple sources. Have you heard this story before?
I have not, but it sounds fantastic.
It was like Reverend like Theodore T. Armadillo, and then his photograph was like an actual armadillo with a clerical collar.
I should probably know that, and all my classmates are probably ridiculing me as they listen because they
Yeah,
all remember, but I slept through it all.
Well, then everyone can put the comments in the YouTube
yeah,
video and
it's in the
so forth.
comments. Yeah.
Yeah, let us know who this was and if Josh's story is real. All right, so then Josh, we'll start with you on this. What are your first your family, and then later on we'll come back around to your church traditions for Christmas. So what are your family traditions?
Oh man.
Um, we uh, we do presents. We do a well, Christmas Eve. We go to church and then have a family dinner. And Christmas Eve is always just our family, and we have a roaring fire in our fireplace, and everybody can choose one gift and open that one after church. And then we stay up late making cookies, and we have um, a couple of things. My wife and I both have German heritage, and so we have I'm going to say this poorly. It's the traditional German Christmas pyramid, and you guys both speak German. You're supposed to anyway, right? That's
I
something Pyramiden. Help me out.
no.
It's got like fan blades on top, and you put candles underneath it, and the heat from the candles
Oh
spin the
yeah.
fan blade, and there's like the little cylinder and it rotates in the middle, and there's the nativity scene, and there's the wise men, and then there's angels on top heralding everything, and then we tell our kids that story. And when my children were very little, like 3 and 4 and 5 years old, they just loved to stare at that thing and watch it for hours. And so yeah,
Josh, I took the last time I took German, I was a senior in high school. That was like 35 years ago. So, all
what do you
right.
mean?
I have no excuse. I took it for 2 years in college as well, but the out I always use is that it was theological German. It was not actually conversational German that I took, which is true, by the way.
So what are your family traditions out there in Las Vegas?
My traditions growing up were very different than what they are now. Growing up, of course, my dad was for the majority of my life not necessarily a pastor in a parish. He was a seminary professor, an administrator for the board for parish services, and then the synod vice president. So a lot of times we went to church as a family on Christmas Eve and opened gifts then, and then Christmas morning and Christmas Day we're all just about watching movies and playing outside in the snow. But in Vegas, we're anticipating a sad reality on Christmas for the first time in my memory, and that is we might get rain on Christmas Eve day and Christmas Day, which would be bizarre, but only 55 degrees. So it'll be frigid. It might be freezing rain for us. However,
Frigid,
not exactly a comfortable
frigid,
Christmas out here.
frigid though.
Yes. Yeah, I might have to put on a sweatshirt for Christmas Eve day or Christmas Day. I'm concerned.
Probably
In
a
any
Raider,
case,
probably a Raider sweatshirt.
no, something much less ugly than
Okay.
that. In any case, now, and especially too, because we had young kids, it was just untenable. Uh, we have a busy Christmas Eve day at our church, so we got usually three services. We had a couple of years coming through COVID and out of COVID where we only had two, but we got typically three services on Christmas Eve, and by the time the last one is done, it's late. The kids are on fumes. I'm on fumes. So we typically just do the stockings on Christmas Eve. And then Christmas Day, we have this worship at 9:30, the movie afterwards with the continental breakfast. By the time we're done talking to everybody, cleaning everything up, lugging everything home, it's pretty much like Christmas ham time. By the time we're finally done eating lunch, we finally launch into all the gifts under the tree, and the kids are uh, they're they're tired of mom and dad slow playing them, and so they're like chomping at the bit and angry and ready to just roll.
So this year is going to be very different for us, after living for 21 years in Racine, raising our girls there. And our tradition there was go to church on Christmas Eve, come back to our house, and then we would just eat junk food for dinner, uh, like rolls of and oh crab rangoon, anything that you can just put in the oven and heat up. And then Shelly would make, because she grew up with this, of grasshoppers, which is cream de mint and cream de cocoa with vanilla ice cream. Put that in the blender, and we'd be eating all this junk food. And then the girls would get to open all their presents on Christmas Eve. Because Christmas Day after church, then we would drive to Juneau, where her parents were, and our dad is only, and then we would spend Christmas Day with her family. And then at church, I don't know how you guys do it, but I've learned that you have to close the Christmas Eve service with Silent Night. with candles and so forth. I made sure moving out here, do we have candles? Because we're going to be doing Silent Night with candles. And now Christmas Day, I was planning on we're just gonna make the Christmas ham, and we're in the movie room where I'm sitting right now, and then we'll just watch Christmas movies and do puzzles. Although, while I was asking you guys this question, a text came up that one of my members just asked. It's kind of funny. He asked, "I don't know what your family Christmas traditions are, but if you'd like, you can come over by our house for Christmas Day." So we'll see. That's very nice of the members to want to take care of their pastor and his family that way. And then I think Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, we'll probably do a Zoom with the rest of our girls back in Wisconsin, as then also connect with our daughter in the military overseas. So those kind of the fun stuff with Christmas tradition and Christmas movies. We also want to talk about some serious stuff with Christmas. So you guys have seen this, and our fans who are listening and watching have seen this too, of people trying to use Jesus as a refugee. Uh, I saw a video, you've seen these videos for the Super Bowl ads and so forth that of Jesus just gets us. And so there is a 30 or 60-second commercial of Jesus gets us. Jesus was a refugee. There's also the woke pastors that are putting baby Jesus in uh, in zip ties in the manger in the nativity set. They've got ICE agents in the nativity. So, what do you think about that, Josh? About Jesus being a refugee, and then Andy, you can riff on that afterwards.
So let's get pedantic, um, shall we? So, a oh, I just had this up. If we define what a refugee is, or if we define asylum, okay, uh, does Jesus fit the bill here? Um, so the definition of a refugee is somebody who is forced to flee their country due to persecution, war, violence, or crossing international borders with a well-founded fear of returning. Um, okay, so is that Jesus' situation? Um, so first of all, if you look at Luke 2, my Bible right here, and you have I'll just invoke the verse that you hear the children read in very excited tones. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, so on and so forth, because he belonged to the house and line of David. So now, if that's what you're talking about, well, no, he was doing that because he belonged to the house and line of David. He was not crossing into a different country, right? So he travels to Bethlehem because he already belongs to that particular lineage, and he's not an undocumented outsider. He's also not there illegally. Um, or if you're talking about the persecution from Herod, that would also be different because he wasn't seeking financial prosperity or a better life. Jesus' family flees lethal, targeted persecution for their child, which aligns more closely with the classic asylum seekers, aside from the 20 million or so people who have just come into our country to set up shop here. Um, and so treating all immigration enforcement automatically like the Herodian cases we see here um, erases biblical categories entirely. And I think that while Scripture clearly tells individual people, right, to deal with the stranger and the foreigner and have compassion, that's talking to me as an individual, as a head of household. And we've taken many a wayward soul into our home for days or weeks or even months at a time. Um, However, that's not talking about governments needing to do that from a corporate or a societal standpoint. There's no biblical basis for that whatsoever. And it's simply a bad exegesis or just intentionally false.
Yeah. So go ahead and build on that, Josh. Maybe especially Andy, as Josh had mentioned about the gospel lesson for this Sunday. the Sunday after Christmas is Matthew 2 of the angel telling Joseph to flee to Egypt. There people would say, well, he's a refugee. Except, how would you counteract that, Andy?
Well, I happen to preach on Matthew 1 today and the story of Joseph, and I won't re-preach the sermon for you, but God told him to escape. And what Joseph and Mary did was certainly very, very different than what is being done today. I guess I'd lead with this, that you have to give credit where it's due on the one hand. If only Christians were so zealous with the word of God and employing and deploying it as enemies of the gospel are with co-opting the gospel for their evil purposes. I mean, we could learn a thing or two about evangelism or motivation, I should say, from the zeal with which they carry out these tactics. The way I would add on to it is by saying, just amplifying and expanding what Josh said, that could it not be clearer? Or has it ever been so clear, I should say, that the apolitical is no more? They will leave no stone unturned. They will not even leave the Bible alone or the biblical history alone. They've got to rewrite the history. And that's really here it is, everybody, the Marxist angle on this. Marxism and critical theory and socialism, they absolutely love to rewrite history, and they will
Yeah.
not even leave the Bible alone. That's exactly what they do with this. As Josh said well, Jesus didn't leave heaven behind to seek any kind of refuge on planet Earth. No, he left the paradisical estate of belonging with the Holy Trinity and all the believers who are already there, at least in soul. He left that paradise to enter this war torn, sin destructed world to bring refuge to us, not to take it or to find it, but to bring it. And he did so not through political causes. He didn't ride on heavenly chariots with angels on every side. He came quietly and humbly, without a political crusade and without, frankly, any kind of fanfare except for that came from shepherds, you know, poor shepherds. Moreover, again, just to riff on this a little bit more, you know, the Marxists love to undermine everything that is good and pure and true from God. They're like the devil in a way, because the devil has never created anything good on his own. He only ever takes the good creations of God and corrupts them and makes them more perverse. And that's what they do here with Christ in this way, but also, with Christmas. Christmas involves, not primarily, but it does involve family. It involves the Holy Family in the scriptures. It also involves our families. We love to rally around the gospel of Jesus Christ as families at Christmas. And they hate that because they hate the nuclear family. Moreover, they hate private property, right? They don't want us to have any. So this idea of giving gifts, which of course can become sordid and materialistic and worldly, we know. But to the extent that we even seek to provide any kind of blessing for one another through the giving or exchange of gifts is, uh, you know, it is a black eye for the Marxists. And then I guess just the I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm so negative and cynical about it. I could go on, but I'll just stop there.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tee up a question for you in a moment on Marxism again. Uh, but this is where I would go with this too, is a lot of times when you are a refugee, then what are you doing? You're seeking refuge in another country and you're going against the government. Well, except that Joseph and Mary, when they go to Bethlehem, they're not fleeing the government, they're obeying the government. This is what Caesar Augustus commanded them to do. They have to go the to the town of Bethlehem, the little town of Bethlehem, because they are of the line of David. Okay, so they're actually obeying the government in doing that. Then, when they flee to Egypt, yeah, they're going to another country, and yet it's still within the purview of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire is all the whole known world. It's, yes, you've got Israel and you've got Egypt, but they're two separate countries, but you can kind of think of them as states in the United States because these are governments that are ruled over by the Roman emperor. And there, Joseph is listening to God. Matthew writes, when the wise men had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, he said, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. So Joseph got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and they left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And then after Herod died, uh, Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. And so, in all of that, they are then also obeying the laws as they're doing these things. Uh, and Herod is not sending his soldiers, who are pictured then as ICE agents in these woke churches with their nativity scenes, of going after and trying to chase down Joseph and Mary and the baby Jesus. Yeah, like you said, they are co-opting scripture just to twist it to fit their narrative.
And I guess what I was stuttering about, what I was wanting to get to before, and I blanked a little bit, was just that it is so blasphemous to manipulate the history of Christ into Jesus being some kind of political activist. It is just downright blasphemous and faith forsaking. But of course, that's the agenda, isn't it?
Right. Then then let's go with this question. Since we're only a few days away from Christmas as we're recording this, how does the Christmas message impact and then also counteract the pagan ideologies of the day? So why don't you touch on Marxism first, Andy? How do we, as Christians, as Christian pastors, as Christian teachers, when we see Marxism in our nation, because it's there, because it's brought up in almost every episode here, it's here. How do we use specifically this Christmas message of God becoming man, the incarnation, to defeat Marxism?
Oh, that could not be more simple, but it's a great question to ask. Let's explain it from two angles. First of all, Marxism, Orthodox Marxism, the neo-Marxism that came about in the early 1900s with the Frankfurt School and initially Marcuse, and then what has evolved into what I call trace Marxism today, although it's more prominent and obvious than it's ever been. The whole goal is self-salvation. It is to empower the individual, or well, not in classes, right? To save themselves and to forge for themselves a new utopia through perpetual agitation, revolution, activism, and the like. So you are your own hero. What could be a greater counter to that than to see in the manger the savior from outside our world, the one who had to enter our world not simply as a man, but as the God man? So that's number one. And then number two, with Marxism, this promised utopia, this attempt to forge a promised utopia through perpetual revolution. We all know, and they if you really pin them down, they would admit too that utopia is never going to happen. But what becomes the extraordinary work of individuals in pursuit of that goal is this constant activism. It's constantly undermining the traditional systems and norms and values. But whatever would get in the way of the activism and the revolution has to be repelled or eliminated, right? And whatever would further it has to be anointed and sponsored and promoted. Well, the thing about God is that he doesn't work that way. If we see anything from the Christmas story, and you guys cited it first, but then we made reference to Matthew 1, and I'll just focus on Joseph since he was a little bit of the focus of my sermon today too. God is the hero of all these accounts we know, but it's amazing what extraordinary work God does through very, very ordinary people. I mean, you would think that the father of Jesus, the earthly father of Jesus Christ, would get at least one audible word in the pages of Scripture. His name is only mentioned 14 times, and he's not got one recorded word. My point is that God accomplishes extraordinary things through very, very ordinary people, but people living peaceful and quiet lives who simply hear the word of God and they obey it. Whereas the Marxists are saying you can accomplish the extraordinary by being nonconformist and by being agitators and by being activists. That's the extraordinary work that you can accomplish. And people find the most evil and wrong sense of purpose in that agenda, when in fact, the extraordinary work that God intends to do through them, he could do through them if they were just their everyday, ordinary selves.
Fantastic. Josh, how about this one? How would you use the Christmas story of the baby Jesus? But I think here you can also include Mary and Joseph when you're going to combat uh, what we talked about in the last couple of episodes on feminism and supposed toxic masculinity. How do you use the Holy Family to combat those errors?
I would I would piggyback on what Andy said about if the notion with feminism is to how to put it, agitate, be an activist, and then overthrow the hierarchy. You see Mary and Joseph um, submitting to the will of God and leaning into the God-given roles that He had established for them. Um, you know, Feminism says this is a project where um, we don't like patriarchy, which again is a biblical construct. I'm not going to submit to the instructions or leadership of any male, including God. I'm not going to submit to God or his authority in my life. And you look at the incredible humility of Mary, um, who took all these things and pondered them in her heart. There was not a hint of rebellion. She asked one clarifying question when the angel comes and says, "Hey, you're going to bear this child," and she's like, "Well, how can this be?" And I don't detect any hint of her being snarky or rebellious or petulant or anything like that at all. Um, she is she is feminine humility, and and then Joseph also is given this dream. He's an honorable man. He wants to divorce her quietly because she's pregnant and not by him. And so, and then God comes in and says, no, 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 take her. And he does that. And I don't think like the amount of sacrifice on Joseph's part as well is just incredible. What he had to go through to submit to God's will here is also remarkable. And and then he leaned into his role as the family leader. And he led her to fulfill the role of the census, which I mentioned earlier in Luke 2. And he protected his young family from danger by fleeing from Herod's wrath. And then shepherded the young Christ as I think the word is tekton, which might have been stoneworker, but carpenter. And
Artisan.
yeah, an artisan of some kind. I think carpenter is the traditional one, but he trained up Jesus to the point where um, isn't this Joseph the carpenter's son? Like this can't be the Christ. And so none of that is concurrent with the feminist ideology saying um, abort your children, engage in sexual freedom, and then be your own boss, and you choose your own path and liberate yourself from everything I just talked about. Having a husband, having a child, having to submit to a man who will then put his own needs aside to the point of death, which is what Joseph did. Um, in order to be the leader of a family, it's it completely takes it apart and provides for us a much better example of how things are supposed to be.
Yeah, and so for our listeners, my point in asking these questions of Andy and Josh with their excellent answers is to give you some training is how do you use God's word when you're dealing with these pagan ideologies and using something that is, as I said in my sermon today with King Ahaz rejecting God's promise of just asking for a sign. He could ask for something simple or something great. He doesn't, with false humility, he doesn't ask for anything. He doesn't want to test the Lord. And so God says, fine, he's not going to let a wicked king interrupt saving his people in Judah or giving a sign for salvation for all of humanity for through his son. So he picks something that's simple and yet miraculous at the same time. And it's going to take 700 years to fulfill in a virgin birth. How do you use a virgin birth and the parents, heavenly and earthly, to counteract these ideologies? When you were talking, Josh, about uh, Joseph training Jesus as a carpenter, I think this is from the beginning of the Passion of the Christ. I think it's the only humorous part in the whole movie, which is an excellent movie, but it's the beginning of the movie where Jesus, is he's now taking on the role of a carpenter to support his mom because Joseph is dead, and he builds a chair. And, they didn't have chairs back in that day. They would, lay on the floor and on mats and so forth. And Mary doesn't understand the chair. And Jesus, I think Jesus says something like, "Oh, it'll catch on." And it's kind of a humorous thing, but a nod to his dad. Uh, what I want to talk about then, because we had our teens over at our house this afternoon for lunch, and then we were doing a Bible study on resisting the devil's lies. And today's episode was on what is a man, what is a woman. We didn't have time to watch Matt Walsh's excellent documentary, What is a Woman? That's going to come up another time. But we talked then about transgenderism. And so what I mentioned today is how do I use the incarnation with transgenderism? And I explained John in writing his gospel, he is writing several decades after Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and he's writing against Gnosticism, which is an idea that the body is different than the soul and the mind. You can separate that. Well, that is exactly what transgenderism is. It's the
Mhm.
body is one thing and your mind, your soul is something else. And that's why they would use the word gender. And I was teaching my teens, I said, you won't hear me use the word gender because that's a word that's been co-opted. I'll, God has made us male and female, two separate sexes because the way liberals, the left, and so forth want to use sex as one thing that you're born with, you're assigned at birth, but then your gender is something totally different. That's your mind and what you feel. That's Gnosticism. What is John writing about in John chapter 1? The opposite of Gnosticism. It is that Jesus came as the divine, but now he is wrapped in humanity. He is God that is takes on the role wrapped in cute little baby skin, and there's no separation. It's all together in one. And I think you can use the incarnation, God taking on human flesh, to talk about transgenderism and his lies. Those are the lies that I had. What other lies are you thinking of, guys, that you could use the incarnation in the Christmas story to combat?
Well, just to key off of what you guys were saying, in the Garden of Eden, the greatest lie the devil convinced Eve to believe was that there was freedom in rebellion. And the premise, the overarching and underlying premise of what we are enduring today in the encroachment, the Marxist encroachment of our country,
Mhm.
is this promise of freedom through rebellion and agitation and activism, right? As though it's not just that rebellion has been sanctified, it's that sin has been portrayed as redemptive. if only you agitate, if only you topple the systems and structures that have been in place and normal for a long time, then you will find true expression, right? You'll find true identity. You will find true worship, they promise. But the reality is they're all false. They're all false, and they all lead to not freedom, but the worst kind of slavery. And as you said so well, Mike, there is no greater promise of redemption than what is found in the one who earned it for us by the ultimate submission, laying himself low, not agitating, but by earning peace for us through submission to the Father's will.
Yeah, and I talked about in my sermon today on uh, Isaiah chapter 7, and then also the gospel lesson of the name that is given to Jesus as Emmanuel, God for us. But I told our people that or God with us, Emmanuel, God with us. I said that that's not really good news unless it's God for us, because God coming with us to destroy us for our sin, that's bad news. Okay, but God coming with us to be for us, to suffer in our place for us, to live perfectly for us in our place, to die for us in our place. That is Emmanuel, God with us, to be God for us. Uh, so that is an important message to remember too. Josh, what do you want to build on?
I think that a lot of Christian friends, Christian colleagues in some cases have lost the plot and believe that um, their purpose is not necessarily in learning more about Jesus and preaching Christ and Him crucified, but in engaging in socio-political activism. Um, and the the lie there, if you boil it all down and you peel everything back, the lie there is it's a denial of original sin. It's the notion that we are inherently perfectible and that human society can hit utopia, whatever you want to define that as. And there's various versions of that, but that's attainable if we can just put enough rules and parameters and control people and remove this and add that. Um, and so activism becomes de facto purpose. And once you embrace that, it's, I would say to qualify, um, once you have unfalsifiability, okay, and people think that X, Y, and Z should be either denounced or supported. And once there's no evidence you can present to the contrary that would convince them otherwise, you have a religion. There's no evidence you could present to me that would talk me out of Jesus. It wouldn't matter what you came up with. Oh, we found an earth mosaic somewhere that denies Jesus is law. Okay, great. Like that's just heresy, whatever. Um, and once you can't be talked out of it, you're engaging in a religious practice. You're engaging in a faith, which is sad because sociopolitical activism is almost entirely left wing, which is almost entirely away from Christ and his cross.
Something else for the Sunday after Christmas this year is uh, it's the fleeing of Herod, and the middle, they're fleeing of Joseph and Mary from Herod. But in the middle verses, there is the slaughter of the innocents in Bethlehem, and we call that uh, it's the first martyrs, the festival of the Holy Innocents. So you can use that message as to combat abortion, because those are the innocent, and you can use that message. Uh, I've been thinking about this for a while, and partly because of these podcasts, and also again reading the books on the Crusades, and especially the last one on Crucified Again by Raymond Ibrahim. That was really tough to read because it's just page after page of the horrible persecution of Christians around the world that we as Christians and are allowing to happen because we're not speaking up, not praying for them, and so forth, not forcing our government to do something to protect them. So every Sunday, what I'm going to do now, starting with this Sunday with Holy Innocents, is to write a petition based on the Christians that are being persecuted. And I'm using a site, The Voice of the Martyrs. And I'm just going to go from Afghanistan and then Albania and just go alphabetically until I get to like Zambia. And it'll take me a couple of years. But as a reminder for our own people, uh, that we need to be praying for the people that are being persecuted around the world because it's coming here. Uh, Going back to the Christmas movies because I forgot to mention this one, and I don't want the nasty comments about missing A Christmas Story because you guys didn't mention that one.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, wow.
yeah, yeah. And Belle was mentioning it, and she said, Dad, I have never watched the whole thing through all in one sitting, uh, until just the other day. Oh, she said she had gone with her sister and future brother-in-law to the movie theater and then watched it. How weird is that? Because uh, I don't think any of us watch it anymore all the way through. It's always like on TBS for 24
Clips,
hours and
yeah.
it just clips. But, you've got, Fragile and The Leg Lamp, Oh Fudge, some of the great lines from that movie too. So
Or Triple Dog Dare You. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So you can't miss that one. Uh, so a couple of things as we're wrapping this up is the three of us are starting talking about having a Men Who Understood the Times conference. I was pushing for Casper, Wyoming to host it, but it's really hard to get all the way out here. And, no one really wants to go to Milwaukee, Wisconsin for any reason, I don't think, even though that's where a lot of the Lutherans are. Andy, tell us why you're pushing for Las Vegas to host this conference.
It's an easy in and out of Las Vegas, easy travel accommodations. We've got a church that's got very high quality audio visual technological setup, screens and otherwise. We've got room, and it's just 9 months out of the year, paradisical place in a non-Marxist utopic kind of way.
Yeah, and so again, we just started talking about this last week, and we're thinking about men and then in parentheses and women who want to discuss these times. And I already have my topic picked out as I want to talk about are we in need of a new Christian crusade? Uh, and so we're just kind of talking about these things. So again, send us emails, texts, put the comments in. Let us know what your thoughts are. We don't have a time frame. We probably have a location, and so forth. But this is something that I think is necessary because we were talking this week too of looking at other conferences going around, and Josh had a great comment saying, uh, "Hey, that agenda, that's what was popular in the 90s, right? That's not the kind of stuff that we should be talking about now, not the important stuff. Uh, so, we're going to try and put
Oh, hold on.
something
Let,
to,
let me
yeah,
let me
go ahead.
clarify that real quick. So,
Yep.
okay. So I've been a call worker for 23 years. I bet I've been to 100 conferences.
Mm.
And like Legos, they're interchangeable. Um, which on the one hand, that can be an ethos. Like we want what we say to be true for all times. Okay, cool. However, there are issues that are happening today, um, that weren't happening in 1987, that weren't happening in 1998, that weren't happening 10 years ago. Among those are, um, pronoun hospitality. I don't think our church, frankly, has a good stance on that. That's defensible biblically. We should talk about that. That's not going to go away. Um, Transgenderism writ large. Um, what what Christians can do in regards to Islam. Um, and you're watching what's happening right now, like we are in Europe. Europe is falling. Um, I'm not sure if you guys saw this. We didn't really talk about this beforehand, but like they canceled Christmas, like the Christmas celebrations. They canceled New Year's Eve in just about every European country. There's huge restrictions on celebrations in public because of Islam. Um, what can the Christian do in accordance with Christian ethics to deal with this? We should be talking about this. God's people should be opening Bibles and having very frank conversations and discussing these things, in particular, if you are in biblical leadership. And so we would invite you to be a part of that whenever this thing happens.
Yeah. And so please reach out to us. Let us know if you're interested. We're going to try and pull this together for next year sometime in Las Vegas. So reach out to us. And then one other thing too is we're really going to start pushing more both on the podcast and then on social media is the financial support, so that we can host a conference like this, so that Andy and I can get a cool microphone and a cool camera, so we look more like Josh, all lit up so
Hey,
nicely
Black
and so forth.
Friday, I'm telling
Yeah.
you, it's like $140.
Yeah, well, Black Friday is over, buddy. Um, and or if nothing else, so that I can have the kind of a book fund that Josh has for Amazon, or that we can get Andy a matching sweater to go along with his pooch.
I was gonna say, I of all people, I need a new ugly Christmas sweater. Come on, people.
Yeah. No, we won't use it for books or clothes. We're gonna use it for uh some special things for the podcast, but especially going toward the conference. Anything else you guys want to say before wrapping up this Christmas podcast?
Yeah, chairs are really hard to build, by the way. Like I built some chairs. Like it's no, chairs are brutal. Like I'm
Yeah.
telling you. I built tables are easy. Um, spoons. I made a ladle last week. It's anyway, chairs are very, very hard to build though. So people always ask the question like, if you could ask Jesus one question, what would it be? I would want to know, okay, well, like, are you like a sliding dovetail joint kind of a guy, or are you mortise and tenon? Just like let's talk shop for a second. That's how you get to know a person, right? Is like, what the
It's
the
finals week at
industry.
it's finals week at Josh's high school, and he's
Oh, it is, yeah.
building
Yeah, we
homemade
just finished.
ladles.
Anything else, Andy?
No, I just wanted to express my appreciation to God above all, but also to you guys for the idea for the podcast and for anybody who's been tracking with us for the last few months. It's been
Amen.
a joyful road.
Yeah, I was looking at when I was setting up the Zoom, put the episode in. We're on 15 already, which is pretty cool. Uh,
Hmm.
so I want to end with this. I know all of you that are listening to this, you're faithful Christians, and you go to church on Christmas Eve. Go to church on Christmas Day too. That's special. Like Andy said, uh, this is the time for you to go and celebrate communion. That God has come down in the flesh, and now you get to have God in the flesh on the altar and then on in your mouth. That is a special thing to do on Christmas Day. So this is the Christmas gospel. So it's important for what we're going to be hearing on Christmas morning. But also, as I said, it's going to be the gospel that's going to defeat Marxism and feminism, so-called toxic masculinity, transgenderism, homosexuality, all these isms and sins that the devil uses that God has created as something good, and the devil twists. Go back to what John writes. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him everything was made, and without him not one thing was made that has been made. In him was life, and the life was the light of mankind. The light is shining in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The real light that shines on everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not recognize him. He came to what was his own, yet his own people did not accept him. But to all who did receive him, to those who believe in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. The Word became flesh and dwelled among us. We have seen his glory, the glory he has as the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. Lord's blessings on your Christmas and your New Year.
Merry Christmas.